What if there was a town where people never seem to grow old? A place where decades pass, but the faces remain the same. Scientists can't fully explain it, locals rarely talk about it, and those who visit often leave with more questions than answers. This isn't a fantasy, it's not science fiction. Somewhere in the world, there exists a place where the rules of aging appear to bend, and the secret might be hidden in plain sight. Welcome to a mystery that has baffled researchers for decades. Welcome to the town where nobody ages. Deep in the valleys of southern Ecuador lies a small town called Vilcabamba. To the outside world, it looks like any other remote mountain settlement. But for centuries, locals have whispered something remarkable. Here, people live far longer than they should. Stories of 1-2-0-year-old farmers still working their fields. Reports of men and women celebrating their 100th birthdays with energy that would shame people half their age. It sounds impossible, and yet the stories kept coming. In the 1970s, the outside world finally took notice. When a Harvard professor named Dr. Alexander Leaf heard about Vilcabamba, he decided to investigate for himself. What he found would challenge everything we thought we knew about human aging. But here's the question that keeps researchers up at night. Was this a natural phenomenon, or something far stranger? And Vilcabamba isn't the only place with these stories. Around the world, rumors persist of isolated communities where people simply refuse to get old. But one town, in particular, stands out. One place where the legend runs deepest. The town of Campo-di-Mele, Italy. A place that scientists once called a longevity laboratory. A place where, for decades, elderly residents thrived well into their 10th and 11th decades. But then, something happened. Something that made the mystery even more unsettling. Campo-di-Mele was once famous for its centenarians. They sat on benches in the village square, chatting with tourists, embodying the secret to a long and healthy life. Scientists flocked here, studying everything from the local diet to the mountain air. Today, Campo-di-Mele is still known for its old folks, but the old folks themselves are gone. The population has dwindled to barely 450 residents, half of what it was 30 years ago, and of the elderly who once defined this village, only a handful remain. What happened? Did they simply die off, or was something else at play? Some say the town became a victim of its own success. As fame brought money and renovation, the old picturesque village was transformed, modernized, made beautiful again. But in the process, the sense of community that kept these elders alive for so long was destroyed. When the young people left to find work in cities, the elderly were left behind. Without family to care for them, they couldn't survive on their own. Some moved away to live with relatives, others died. The social fabric that had sustained them for centuries simply unraveled. But is that the whole truth? Or is there a darker story hiding beneath the surface? Because here's where the story takes a strange turn. Even as the real residents of Campo-di-Mele vanished, rumors persisted that the spirit of the village remained, and that some who drank from its waters, or breathed its air, experienced something far more profound. Some locals whisper that the town's secret was never the diet, or the exercise, or the mountain air. The secret, they say, was something in the water itself. In Stafford Springs, Connecticut, there's a legend that has persisted for over 200 years, a story about a natural mineral spring whose waters possess a remarkable property, not just healing, but something far more extraordinary. It begins in the late 18th century. A traveler, suffering from a persistent illness, arrived in the small settlement of Stafford. The locals directed him to the mineral spring, famous for its supposed healing properties. He drank from it daily for weeks. By the time he was ready to leave, he was completely restored. In fact, the locals noticed something else. He appeared younger than when he had arrived. He had aged in reverse. Years later, another traveler passing through the region met a man who claimed he had once visited Stafford and had never grown ill again. The description of that man matched the traveler perfectly. By the mid-1800s, Stafford Springs had become a fashionable resort destination. People traveled from across the country to bathe in its waters. Doctors wrote about the spring's unusual properties, and one physician supposedly kept detailed records of patients who appeared to age far more slowly than expected. According to local law, the doctor's notes were never found after his death. Some say they were lost. Others whisper they were intentionally removed to keep a secret from being exposed. The most unsettling story, however, is the one that lingers even today. Throughout the 20th century, residents occasionally reported seeing an elderly man sitting near the mineral spring during quiet evenings. He wore dark, old-fashioned clothing. His face was impossible to read, neither young nor old. One local resident reportedly stopped and greeted him. When asked how long he'd been coming to the spring, the man replied, "Longer than most people remember." And when asked if he had grown up in Stafford, he paused and said, "No, but I first came here a very long time ago." The bench was empty. No footsteps led away from the spot, and the only sound was the water rising slowly from the earth as it has for centuries. Today, the spring still flows. Visitors occasionally pause and take a sip. Most come out of curiosity. But every so often, someone wonders if there are people walking the roads of New England, aging far more slowly than they should. People who first drank from that spring centuries ago. So what's really going on here? Is there a scientific explanation for these stories, or are we dealing with something paranormal? When Harvard's Dr. Alexander Leaf investigated Vilcabamba, he concluded that the longevity was due to a combination of factors: diet, exercise, low stress, clean air, a simple life free of the pressures that plague modern society, the kind of life that allows people to live 100 years without heart attacks or stress-related illnesses. Dr. Guillermo Vela Chiriboga, who studied the residents extensively, found that even if some age claims were exaggerated, there was no denying the reality. These people were free of arteriosclerosis, their hearts were healthy, and they suffered none of the typical ailments of old age. The secret, they said, was in the diet: corn, beans, quinoa, peanuts, cabbage, vegetables that kept them free of digestive upsets and heart disease. And perhaps even more importantly, a lifestyle free of competitive stress, a culture that didn't hoard wealth or chase status. In other words, there was nothing magical about Vilcabamba. It was simply a place where people lived the way humans were meant to live. A natural paradise where aging, while not stopped, was certainly slowed. But that's not the whole story, is it? Because if it were that simple, why do these legends persist? Why do people still whisper about springs that grant eternal life? And why did Campo de Mile's secret seem to vanish when the village was modernized? Some researchers believe there's more to these stories than diet and exercise. Recent studies have suggested that genetics may play a role, a longevity gene that runs in these isolated communities, keeping cholesterol, triglycerides, and blood pressure exceptionally low. In Campo de Mile, doctors are now studying a younger generation, and it appears they carry the same beneficial genes as their elders. The longevity may not be a mystery at all. It may simply be biology. But biology doesn't explain the man by the spring in Stafford. And it doesn't explain why the elders of Campo de Mile, once the village's pride and joy, seem to have vanished into thin air. Is it possible that something else is at work here? Something science hasn't yet discovered? So what is the truth behind the town where nobody ages? Is it the simple miracle of a healthy lifestyle, clean air, and good genes? Or is there something more profound hidden in the waters, the soil, the very air of these mysterious places? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in between. Perhaps these villages do hold a secret, not a magical fountain of youth, but a reminder of what we've lost in the modern world. A slower pace of life, real food, connection to community, a sense of purpose that keeps people alive, not just in body, but in spirit. When Dr. Vela Chiriboga studied the people of Vilcabamba, he found something remarkable, not a potion, not a genetic mutation, but something far more precious, a way of living that brought true peace of mind, an existence free from the stress that plagues the modern world. The people of Vilcabamba, he wrote, enjoy tranquility without a competitive spirit. They spurn the accumulation of wealth. They live a useful, happy old age. And perhaps that is the real secret. Not eternal youth, but eternal purpose. We may never know the full truth about the town where nobody ages. Maybe the legends are just legends. Maybe the stories are exaggerated. Or maybe, just maybe, there are places in this world where the rules are different, where time slows down, where people have discovered what the rest of us have forgotten. But here's a question to keep you awake tonight. If you found one of these places, would you drink the water? Would you stay? Or would the fear of eternal life, with all its secrets and loneliness, be enough to send you running? Some mysteries, perhaps, are meant to remain unsolved. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, hit that like button and subscribe to join us on more explorations into the world's strangest mysteries. Tell us in the comments, do you believe the secret of these towns is scientific, paranormal, or something else entirely? And if you know someone who loves unexplained mysteries, share this video, because some stories are too strange to keep to yourself forever.